And welcome once again to another episode of the HoriZone Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and you can find me on Twitter at Bob McDonald. Jimmy Lemke, who you can find on Twitter at PantherU, will be joining us momentarily. And you can always follow the HoriZone Roundtable podcast on Twitter at HoriZoneRT. So we're really excited for this. For those of you who are fortunate enough to be listening live via YouTube, the Sports Hacks, Sports HAX YouTube channel. Sports Hacks, of course, is where we is the site where all of our episodes can be found. And so we're really excited to do this live, and it looks like we've got some. And we really appreciate you guys jumping in and being a part of this. The first podcast of the new year. So I'm really looking forward to it. I know Jimmy's looking forward to it. 2018 was a great year for us. Got the podcast back on. Got the did some really good things. We've gotten the fans involved, and incidentally, guys, we will be doing the second annual Fan Battle Royale in April. We will be sending out details for that soon, and we're crossing our fingers. We're going to get all 10 Horizon League schools involved this time, and I think we're pretty confident we could do that. So we've gotten student media involved. We've had coaches on. We had Dennis Felton on, who, let's face it, is not having a great time right now, and we'll talk a little bit about that because the first weekend of the conference schedule is officially in the books, and I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that Northern Kentucky is on top. They this was probably a pretty good test for Northern Kentucky. By the way, if you do have a question, and I know we've gotten a couple of these already, you can actually reply to the Twitter account at HoriZoneRT. You can also email us at HoriZoneRoundtable@gmail.com. Naturally, if you're listening to this recorded, hey, you can go ahead and send those in yourself, and hey, we'll get you covered next week because we'll still have plenty of questions. So I did want to give a shout out to we actually have a Phoenix Rising _9. Had a good question, which of course is I'm going to hit the second part of the question there, and that involves, after the first week, do we think that Northern Kentucky and Wright State are going to finish 1-2? Jimmy, what do you think?
They should listen to it once right now, and then they should listen to it later to get that kind of like extra effect, and then I'll be like the director's commentary.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So yeah, of course obviously I'm trying to do some things that aren't really working out so well. Let's see. I've muted you. I've included you in the podcast. It's one of those things.
How about you go solo for a little bit? I'm going to come back in a few minutes. Okay.
Okay. All right.
I'll try this.
All right. Do that, and let's see where we go from there. Okay. So Jimmy's jumped out again. Hopefully Jimmy will jump back in again. And let's hope that this works. While he's away, I definitely wanted to get to the, oh crud, Jimmy just left, and we can now hear Jimmy. Thank you by the way again, Jim Squire, Phoenix Rising. Thanks for listening in, and definitely thanks to, and of course sorry guys, I just kicked Jimmy out. So we're gonna have to try this again. Little technical difficulty. I think I figured out what happened, which means, unfortunately, that means that we probably don't have. Oh, that's not a good thing. So we get to do this all over again now, don't we? So the one thing that we wanted to talk about, we talked about, Oakland and Detroit Mercy. They went into Cleveland State and Youngstown State, and they won. Oakland and Detroit Mercy are 2-0 in the Horizon League right now. And if you'd have told me 6 months ago, that Detroit Mercy, a team that scrambled to find a coach, we spent 2 months looking for a coach, would be 2-0 in the Horizon League, I would have told you were crazy. But again, back to that whole thing of you underestimate Mike Davis at your peril. I know we mentioned it a couple of weeks ago ago when we had Carrick Jones on the show, and we definitely, it's probably the best hire that, Mike Davis just keeps reinforcing the fact that he is the best decision. He is the best decision that Detroit could have made under the circumstances. I mean, it's absolutely true. And again, also helps that his son is basically playing his ass off right now. And he really is. I mean, you're talking about a player who is, he was and of course, now I'm trying to get. Sorry guys for the dead air. That's not Jimmy. That's just me trying to reply to Jimmy, telling him to get his butt back in here. Yeah. So apparently, I made so I guess what happened was, and again, bear with us, of course, which means Jimmy is probably sitting there with a lot of dead air for the last 20 minutes, which is going to be outstanding. Which means, of course, that we're probably going to be doing this over again. So we just talked for about 19 minutes, and of course I actually it looks like I had pressed the right button so you could actually hear Jimmy. And of course now we thought ejecting Jimmy self-ejecting would be a good idea, but apparently not. So one of the things that and I guess the question that I now have as well is that and I feel like we're going to be spending a lot more time talking about this when Jimmy gets back, or even better. And by the way, thank you for the folks who are listening. Thank you again for bearing with us. We may be starting this over. Didn't mean to do that, but I sure as hell ended up having that happen. So let's try this again. Hopefully we get the right things going on. And hold on a second, Jimmy. I think I need to do one last thing for you. Aha, show and broadcast. Apparently that's the problem that I had. So you back, Jimmy?
I'm here.
Jimmy is here. Okay.
I'm a steer. Get used to it.
Oh, what the hell? Okay. All right. Yes. Now you can hear Jimmy. All right. So we got some. Yeah. Okay. What was that?
I moved.
You moved.
This is Wisconsin.
Oh,
this is Wisconsin.
yes.
This is America's Dairyland.
As we continue, I continue to forget that part. Yeah. So apologies for the folks who are probably listening to this right now, who are probably listening to this on sportshacks.com, hax.com, recorded, and probably thinking, oh my dear God, where's all this dead air from the first 10 minutes? It's my fault. I didn't.
That was your pee break.
It was my fault. My bad. But that's what's going on. All right. Yes. Okay. So
your sentence will be: you have to spend your rest of your life as a Cleveland State fan.
Really? Yeah. Well, that's going to happen anyway. I mean, let's face it. I got, I invested.
You don't think I did anything? I did things to be forced to do this. That's all I'm saying. I'm paying for some sins by having this as my basketball team right now.
Well, at least people are. I'm trying to figure out who's got the worst situation right now. Milwaukee or Cleveland State?
Well, I think we're going to find out on Thursday, aren't we? Huh? Are we going to find out on Thursday?
We are going to find out on Thursday because we have the infamous Wisconsin trip. It's coming up this week, where Cleveland State is playing. Cleveland State's got Milwaukee and then Green Bay, and I can easily see both Cleveland State and Youngstown State going starting the season 0-4. I can see it.
You guys don't like the Wisconsin. Why does every team have problems with Wisconsin?
I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. It's just they can. It seems like it's like Wisconsin, especially when Cleveland State was actually good. It seems like we're getting further away of when they were good. It seems like it really seems like Wisconsin is like Cleveland State's kryptonite, man. It really does, because I don't think they've swept a series in Wisconsin in forever. I think since 2011, 2012, I think was the last time, and that was a long ass time ago.
One thing I will say is that there's a Green Bay or Milwaukee is always at least decent.
Yes, and this year
there's rarely a time where both teams are bad.
And incidentally, this year it is in fact this year that team is the halfway decent team is Green Bay. I can't really make too many assessments on your team right now. Presumably,
I'm a little surprised how not good Green Bay is for having Sandy Cullen and having Quan on their team. I figured they'd be better as a basketball team than they are.
See, and that's the other thing too. I think I can't even isolate that to just Green Bay. It seems like it's kind of an across the board thing on the Horizon League, especially in the non-conference, because I honestly thought Green Bay was going to do a lot better in the non-conference. I definitely thought Wright State was going to do better in the non-conference. And I think Green Bay is going to be fine. I think they're going to be okay. I think they're still a top. They'll probably finish in the top 3, top 4. Do they catch up with Northern Kentucky? I'm not so sure right now. But I'm
not sure anybody catches up with Northern Kentucky.
And then of course I don't think they do.
I'm sure there will be teams that like.
But then you have the wild card of
do well.
Yeah.
In the regular season, but like a team is not as good. Like
yeah.
There are better teams out there than it's just a better team than most places.
This is true. Now the big thing for Northern Kentucky is, can they make it? Can they get past that last step? Because obviously last year didn't happen. Do they get to that final step in which they make it to where they get into the end? They win Motor City Madness and win the conference tournament. Go to the NCAA tournament. That's going to be kind of that's like the $64,000 question right there. Do they finally get over that? Do they atone for the upset of last year and finally get over the hump? That's kind of at this point in time the way Northern Kentucky is currently playing right now is that is the only question. Do they get over that hump at Motor City Madness? Because as of right now, it looks like they are the best team in the Horizon League until proven otherwise, because you can't make that you're not going to be if they went in you can't make that statement with Wright State right now, because they again maybe it's a combination of bad luck, but you can't make that statement about UIC. You can't make that statement about IUPUI right now, because you got UIC is 1-1, Wright State's 1-1, IUPUI is 0-2. IUPUI is 0-2, and I thought for sure they were going to do it.
Honestly, it's too small a sample size.
It kind of is, but I mean,
it's a long conference season, man. Just a long. It generally
season. But again, the big thing. I really think But even in this small sample size, I'm not entirely convinced that anybody that I am convinced though that Northern Kentucky is the top team in the league, even with the only 2 games up. I think they have kind of shown that they will take all comers. Now, do they finish do they finish with a perfect record in the conference? Hell no, nobody does that. I mean, this isn't like Butler in 2010 or anything, or whenever the hell they had a perfect record in the conference. Right. This is, they're gonna lose, and they'll probably end up losing to lose the game that they're not supposed to lose. But it doesn't matter, because I think they're still gonna have enough wins. They're still gonna be far and away I still just based on kind of what we've seen in the non-conference and in the first weekend, they have the tools to be able to take the regular season crown. Then comes, of course, the real test, which is, can they win the tournament? Which is anybody's guess. So yeah, I mean,
there won't be those dangerous 9 and 10 seeds this year.
Can we all remember that Cleveland State was an 8 seed last year?
I don't. You're asking me to remember things.
But
memory ain't my game.
But I will say this though. Instead of an 1-8 game in Detroit this year, it's going to be a 1-8 game at the home school of the top seed. So instead of Cleveland State playing Northern Kentucky, it's as a 1-8 in Detroit, it would be at BB&T Arena. And I think we've talked about this a couple of times. That's a big difference.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
It isn't, but But of course, this is also, I guess this year would be contingent upon Cleveland State actually being one of the top 8 teams. And I'm not even sure of that right now. I think they would be. I keep saying over and over again that Cleveland State is better than what everybody thinks, but they're kind of proving me wrong lately. You lose.
It progress. It takes time. He's only been the head coach for a year and 10 games or whatever. Like you You got to give it some time.
Mike Davis, besides Gerald Blackshear and Josh McFawley, basically put his team together at the absolute last minute, and they went into Cleveland and won by 12. I mean,
yeah, but he also has players he shouldn't have. Like it's hard to really like judge Mike Davis and Felton on the same level when Dennis Felton doesn't have a kid coming into the game that's better than the team. Like he could be on a better team.
Maybe.
Just
I don't
by
know.
picking somewhere else. He's like a little bit of a mini version of Ray Jr., you know?
Of course he is. Yeah. And again, but I also, he's also getting production. He's still getting production out of McFawley though, which is huge. He's still getting, he's getting production out of some of the guys he's brought in. So, and I watched the game on Sunday. I swear I watched the game on Sunday. There were points in that game where I just legitimately thought Cleveland State was just sleepwalking through it. And I mean, how many times, how many times could you sit? I mean, how many times can you have a, I don't know. It's kind of befuddling that you have a situation over there at Cleveland State and you just don't know what's going on. Like, I mean, and again, Oakland is in a similar situation as Oakland is in rebuilding mode this year, and you could make the same very young team argument for Oakland that you can for Cleveland State, and yet Oakland had no problem against Cleveland State. They had no problem. Similar I swear, I looked at the rosters the other day, and there is a similar makeup from the Oakland team and the Cleveland State team based on just the ages and all that good stuff.
Uh-huh.
And also too, you don't know what we've been talking for months on, we don't really know what we're going to get from Oakland this year. They were really a wild card because I had no clue. And, but again, it's one of those things. It's frustrating. I mean, I'm not saying blow up the entire athletic department frustrating, but frustrating nonetheless. Ugh. So, all right. So one of the things that we got asked as well, and let's see here. Yes. Phoenix Rising also had one question because we talked about the Northern Kentucky Wright State. Will they finish 1-2? We're kind of in the, that's still a possibility. We also, Phoenix Rising also asked, is the Horizon League looking to expand? And if so, the potential new teams? I'm going to say no. I don't think they are. Oh, you think they are?
Sure.
You think they're looking to expand? But
remember who's still running the conference. So John LeCrone runs the conference. And there's one thing that John LeCrone sees himself as, it's an innovator. And he always sees himself as a guy who's trying to
He should remind himself that he's an innovator because some of the innovations that he's had, he's basically forgot about, which I don't really understand.
He's like the Mao of college basketball. Like it's constant revolution for him. Yeah. He's always got to come up with some new way of doing things. They tried to do the double elimination Horizon League tournament, which would have done a couple nice things in that making the destination conference tournament more viable because you'd take 2 games before you lose. You'd have to leave, and then also it'd do better to protect the better teams. But at the same time, the NCAA wasn't taking that. And he's also said, we got to add teams. And he's come up with Youngstown and IUPUI. And granted, IUPUI hasn't turned out to be all that bad of an addition because the Horizon League had already fallen to the IUPUI's level. So, good for them. We're garbage like their program now. So it's fantastic that we're all at this just trash level of basketball now. So it's, good, but it's also, this is exactly what, LeCrone wants is more innovation. And what does that mean now? He's always going to be on the lookout for new teams. He's always going to be on the lookout for new teams. There's never going to be a point where John LeCrone's going to say, okay, what we have right now is as good as we're going to do. We should just be happy with this and just not look to change. There's never going to be a case like that anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess my question would be, where the it just seems like where the conference is right now. Are they thinking that, hey, we probably want to, the league is not good right now. The league is trying to aspire to be. They're aspiring to be mediocre at this point. But how do you sell a team? How do you sell a school on the Horizon League now? How do you do that? I mean,
what do you mean?
I mean,
the Horizon League is the stepping stone conference. It's the stepping stone to something better. Valpo didn't get into the MVC until they spent 10 years in the Horizon League. Butler was a nothing program until they could take the Horizon League as their own and make it their own conference and, own it.
Which
that's always going to be how they pitch it, and they're correct to do so.
And I will agree with you, specifically because you don't see that same jump. You don't see you've never seen that jump with, say, the Summit League or the WAC or any of these other mid majors that we're with teams that have similar geographical backgrounds. You don't see a Summit team jumping over to the Valley or jumping over to the A10 or anything like that. But you do see that with the Horizon League. So I kind of understand the logic that in that. And I think, but if that's the And maybe
why wouldn't you?
No, I find no fault in that. I find no fault in that logic because it's pretty clear that we have the track record to see that we're kind of we've gotten to the point where the Horizon League is, or we've always been to the point where the Horizon League is kind of the way station to the higher major conferences.
And don't forget, Butler wasn't the one that started that.
No,
Notre Dame used us as a way to get to the Big East.
Xavier did the same. Yeah,
Marquette used us to get to Conference USA. Xavier used us to get to the A10. I mean, this is a good conference as a kind of like way station.
St. Louis. I mean, you can go down the list. But and I'm sure, and I don't doubt that you've got a Northern Kentucky's probably looking at the same exact thing right now. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I don't blame them for if they look like they want to be from what Northern Kentucky has put together right now. They are kind of specifically with the long-term deal they've secured with John Brannon. I think they're kind of thinking about 3 or 4 moves down the road. They're thinking, okay, 5 years down the road, we're going to make our bones in the Horizon League, and then we're going to go, and then we can plan to go elsewhere.
Well, I don't know if Northern Kentucky ever thought of like the Horizon League as being the stepping stone, because you got to remember when they were in D2, they were talking about the Horizon League was the conference they wanted to be in.
Which is interesting because they didn't get that. They ended up at the Atlantic Sun, which is another way station conference.
Well,
it really is.
The Horizon League wasn't when they were looking at us, because it had been a long time since the Horizon. I mean, they brought it back. Butler brought it back.
Yeah,
but it had been not a thing for a while.
You are correct.
So
this is true. So that's it. So that's interesting. So the other part of that question is if the Horizon League is looking to expand, we were asking the question, if they are interested in expanding, who are they looking at right now? What are the teams? What are the schools that would benefit from what the Horizon League has to offer?
Well, it's rare that the Horizon League has taken on a school with the express. I mean, it's with at least a almost expressed agreement or knowledge between everybody that it would be a temporary situation. At least a lot of fans, we thought Oakland, we would think that Valpo was here to stay. We thought that Oakland and Northern Kentucky would be here to stay, and they still may. But one that I would bring up as one that's definitely a temporary addition could be the Grand Canyon, New Mexico State editions.
Yeah. Which we've talked about previously, and I think, Because they're in the WAC, and there's almost an annual conversation about whether the WAC is going to end up finally imploding. They haven't in the last couple of years, which is kind of interesting.
The good thing for the WAC is that there's always somebody who needs a home.
This is true.
California Baptist is going to be the new team. They're going to need a home,
and
so
and that's where they are now.
That's what they are. So there's always going to be a need for a conference like the WAC to be even more of a way station than like us or the Atlantic 10, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
But Grand Canyon and New Mexico State coming out of that conference to the HoriZone League would most definitely be that kind of situation where really being in the HoriZone League is a way for the Grand Canyon to prove itself and being a more stable conference than the WAC. Could they come in and own something like it? You can keep costs down because most of the non-revenue sports will only travel once every other year. So it's not like the women's soccer team from Milwaukee is going to be traveling to Phoenix every year.
No.
Really, you're sending one soccer team every year. It's the women or the men.
Yeah.
So you can keep costs somewhat down that way, and then also it's about getting the level of the HoriZone League back up, because I've thought about it lately, and I really do think that the timing of some of these departures has been just as much of a problem for us as anything else. Like it's losing Valpo when we did was tough, because it was right around the time that a lot of the HoriZone League teams were hitting the downside of their cycle.
Yep. So
maybe this isn't a bad time, but like think of all the programs that had major regime changes. Think of all the teams that had major regime changes around the time that Valpo made its change. That's difficult on the conference.
Well, yeah, it really was. It really was.
Right.
It absolutely was. But what's interesting is they followed that Valpo departure up with this whole conversation that all of us have been having forever about expansion, and we've been having this conversation for like a year and a half now.
Sure.
Does it continue to be a conversation? I mean, sure. It's the HoriZone League. They're probably always having conversations. Does it come into reality soon? Who knows? I mean,
if you could make a choice, Bob, if you could choose to add teams, would you? And if you would, what would the say two teams to get to 12? Like, what would your two teams be if you could?
Honestly, I would probably, and maybe it's because I prefer kind of I would prefer kind of more of the regional proximity. So I wouldn't necessarily be apt to have a Grand Canyon and Grand Canyon and the New Mexico State come in for a couple of reasons. Obviously, one, I know that I'm sure they could figure out the whole cost thing, but it's still going to be a cost there. And also, you're working with them knowing full well that they're probably going to be they would probably leave the conference much earlier than the 10 years that Valpo put in, or Xavier or whoever. I would probably be more apt to keep it a little more regional. And I can't believe I'm even saying this. I would probably be looking at Fort Wayne and Robert Morris. I would look at those two teams. I'm sure I will get an egregious amount of shit over that, but I think
it was Big D at WSU who brought up Robert Morris, or not Robert Morris, Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
Just talking about how like the core teams of this HoriZone League don't seem to leave. The big public schools. Yeah. Don't seem to get out of here the way that we would expect them to. There were times when Cleveland State was in a really good position after the 2009 season and Gary Waters and 11, and that could be a team that we could have lost. Cleveland State definitely there were people, fans at Cleveland State who were having conversations. If we go, where do we go? Detroit,
remember that?
Mercy, Detroit Mercy has always kind of had this wet dream about getting into the Atlantic 10.
Yep.
And failing that, a lot of them have talked about the MAAC with Siena and schools like that, because that's not terribly out of the realm of possibility for them.
Well, yeah, and keep in mind too that the MAC, the MAC, because there's an extra A in there. The MAC.
Yes.
Well, keep in mind too, and remember with Detroit, they're actually in that conference for lacrosse too.
I mean, but that's not a long-standing connection. Yeah. They've only had a lacrosse program for like 6 years, 7 years.
But still, I mean, there is a connection, though. I mean,
right? I mean, there is a connection. What I would say is that, truthfully, Detroit Mercy's real reason for like having a connection is that there's more of that conference. Mm-hmm. Makes sense for them just based on the profile of the school.
Yeah.
They are not the big public school that a lot of us are.
No.
And with adding Northern Kentucky, with adding IUPUI, with adding Oakland in the last 3 editions to the conference, that the needle has swung towards the public school.
In a big way. And that's been going on for like what, 20, 25 years now? Because most of the teams that you have in the HoriZone League now are all kind of the core. Most of them are,
I want to say it was Big DWSU who said this, but I may be getting it wrong because it's been a few years and I may not remember. But he's pointing out that we're all kind of the ones of us that are sticking around. We really don't have that ability to get out because we're kind of meant for each other.
Yeah,
we're not all gonna leave and go our separate ways because you really can't find a better fit of a conference than what we're at right now. Mm-mm. So the real question becomes: is it like the question really should be how do we make this conference better?
Yeah.
And I do think you go and add teams. At this point, with how IUPUI has not been a bad addition, because of the level of the conference getting lower, I would say we're probably better off. We're probably better off just leaning into it and bringing in Fort Wayne because screw it, why the hell not? This conference is dying anyways. Why not just carve the ball over the water like Matt Damon and the Legend of Bagger Vance? Like just screw it, just carve it out over the water. That's how this conference is.
Well, yeah, and it's always been that way. It's been that way since I've been paying, since Cleveland State's been involved and part of it, and since Milwaukee's been a part of it, which coincidentally is the same amount of time. Obviously, I've got some years on you, so I was there when that chunk of mid-con teams came over to the HoriZone League, or what was the Midwest Collegiate Conference, the MCC.
Also, by the way, can we? All right. So there's something that's I've been thinking about for a very long time.
Okay.
Obviously in Milwaukee where we don't get branding right, branding's always been a thing for me.
Sure.
I've always felt like the HoriZone League name has been something that has been kind of how do I say this? It seems like a fake league. It just seems like bullshit. HoriZone League seems kind of like some cheap C-tier villain group in the DC comic universe. Like it just seems really
that's not really a great universe to be in right now, considering most of the I still have like visions of Justice League being so bad a movie in my head. Thanks.
I'm going to Aquaman tonight.
Are you now?
I'm actually going to go see Aquaman tonight. So, yeah.
How is it that the individual movies? Because I've seen Wonder Woman; it's a really good movie. Heard Aquaman's really good. How is it that those individual movies are okay, but the Justice League movie was such ballsack? I don't understand that one.
Well, there's a lot of reasons for it.
Is it because of Ben Affleck? Is it Ben Affleck's fault? Can I blame Ben Affleck?
No, I would say that I would blame the story. They don't have a Feige. That's the problem.
No, they don't.
So the DC universe doesn't have a Feige.
Kevin Feige, of course, who's the guy who on the Marvel comic universe, and he's going to make that even bigger now that Fox and Disney are going to Disney's buying all
the guy is working constantly to figure out how they're going to make that happen.
But whatever you do, Kevin Feige, you better make sure that Deadpool's still rated R. You rat bastard! Don't change that.
I don't think that's going to be a thing, and Deadpool may or may not even be a part of what that is, but it's fine. Really, they don't have a Feige, so they don't have somebody to overarching just try and figure out the whole thing. What they should have done,
Yeah.
if they were insisted on doing like the Justice League first before setting up all their characters, what they should have done is they should have made a Justice League movie.
By the way, James Squire did mention he actually, since we're talking about the DC universe, apparently DC universe and the Marvel universe, he just got done watching Man of Steel, and he's also currently watching Batman versus Superman right now. So my condolences, James.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
What they should have done is they should have made the Justice League with a bunch of characters, and then let the fan reactions for each of those characters kind of decide how they were to, move forward from there.
Well, yeah, that's the part I don't really understand either, because they plopped this Justice League movie in before they kind of developed any. Because what did they do? They plopped in Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman. Superman, Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, Wonder Woman, all those movies got made. But then they plopped in Justice League. Haven't like developed the Flash, haven't developed Cyborg. Just now got Aquaman out. I mean. And it's funny because all of the DC shows that are on the CW right now are like way better. So I don't really understand. I'm sorry, where were we going with this? I don't even remember. I think you were talking about how the Horizon League sounds like a really bad DC comic.
The Horizon League's a bad name, and the real reason that they made it the Horizon League in the first place was because Midwestern Collegiate Conference and Mid-Continent Conference would get confused.
And then what happens like 5 years? What happens like 5-10 years later?
By fucking design, too. By the way, let me be perfectly blunt. The assholes that decided to make the Mid-Con into the Summit League knew perfectly well what the fuck they were doing. Yeah. They were trying to make people confused and think, oh, the Summit League, that's the one with Butler, right? That's exactly what those fucking knobs were doing. And it worked perfectly for them because people couldn't tell the fucking difference between the two. Sorry for all my fucking language, but it's fucking infuriating all this time later.
Think about it for a second, and you look at it. Where are you getting that?
You know what you do now?
Go back to the go back to the MCC.
Go back and you
rename it the MCC again.
Right, it's the Missouri, it's the Midwestern Collegiate Conference, the MCC. That
go back
sounds
to the
like
MCC, damn it.
The MCC sounds like a legit conference. The Horizon League, the Summit League, do not be done with it. MCC,
which means, of course. I don't know, man. I mean, as much as they should have done that already, then we'd have to rename the podcast, and we'd be really screwed. Like, I don't know. I'm not that, we're not that. I'm not that generally creative. Well, actually, I am that creative, but still, that's
Charlie McDennis, like the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. We're for selfish reasons, for branding reasons on our end. Maybe they shouldn't do. But no. They actually, yeah. But. Well, I mean, what's the difference? But before we get...
Well, at this point, I suppose it really doesn't matter anything. I suppose it really doesn't matter right now.
It really does not. By the way, I just want to make sure that Jim Sarro actually it's in a couple of questions in. So before we get out of here, I do want to answer his questions. He asked, was there any word on what venues submitted bids to host the tournament? Not that I'm aware of. And the other question he had was,
was there actually a bid process? Or is it really like, hey, let's go with this? I don't believe for a second that there was ever like a true bidding process. The Horizon League's a private entity; it doesn't need to put it out there.
But they did. But they did for some reason.
I sincerely doubt.
I don't know why they did that either. Like
they put it out so guys like me and you wouldn't whine about it. That wasn't about.
But we're gonna do that anyway.
That was about. Well, they were trying to avoid the truth, which was people didn't like that they just decided to go to the Detroit because their athletic directors and school presidents and chancellors were all so stupid. Just let it happen. Aside from UIC and Valpo, by the way. Mm-hmm. So shout out to UIC and Valpo for knowing what was going on, how stupid it was to pick that.
That was like, well, for Cleveland State now, that's like 2 ADs ago. Oh, that's a whole other situation. That's such a clusterfuck. Anyway, I mean, that's
Right.
I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes, and I'm probably not going to like the results because I'm an asshole. I'm going to complain about it anyway. So yeah, you're probably. I mean, but nobody knows anything, and I guarantee you, we probably won't hear anything. I think they put that out to say, all right, here it is. We're doing this thing. Shut up about it and be done with it. We'll probably announce it in July because that's what we do. In the lull of college athletics, July is pretty much the kind
dead
of
zone.
Yeah, the quiet point. I mean, like who the hell is talking about that besides you and me? So yeah, that's probably when they'll do it, most likely. The other question that Jim had was, should any coaches be on the hot seat or in line to move up? And I don't see that right now at this point.
I mean,
if I'm Dennis Felton, I'm a little concerned because you're getting your second boss next year.
I think Scott Nagy's going to be not on the hot seat.
Yeah,
but I think within a few years, Scott Nagy's going to be he's going to be on a list for moving up at different places. There's going to be somebody who's going to say, oh, that guy should join up with us.
Yeah.
That's going to be a thing.
And I can see that with Nagy. I can see that with John Brannon. I don't really see it anywhere else. And again, I think it's not even lukewarm. It's not even I can't even call it a hot seat. I'm calling it's not even lukewarm. It's like, room temperature maybe seat where Dennis Felton is right now, only because of the fact that,
nobody's gonna fire him.
First of all, he's not going anywhere. He's definitely going to be around next year. He's going to be around next year.
Fired just because it's going to take time.
Well, the other thing is too, they don't, they're not. Cleveland State doesn't have a permanent AD right now. They don't have one, so that's going to be somebody else. That's going to be somebody else's problem at this time next year.
Yeah, nobody's going to make that change just because.
Absolutely not. That's why I'm saying it's not even a hot seat. It's not even lukewarm. I mean that for the teams that we see that potentially could be on coaches that could be on the hot seat, not really. I mean, Felton's not going anywhere. Jared Calhoun's not going anywhere. Pat Baldwin's not going anywhere. Mike Davis just got there. Greg Campy is pretty much dug in like a mushroom, so he's fine. But I think it's going to be a matter of those folks who have the potential to move up, and that is the Nagys and the Brandons of the world. And I see that, and so it's kind of one of these years where I don't actually see too much flux in the way of head coaches. I think the group that we have now is going to be the same group of coaches we have next year.
Who's the dean of coaches right now? Is Steve McLean still the coach at UIC?
Of course he is. Yes.
Did that make him the dean? No, it's Greg Campy.
It's always going to be Greg Campy. Greg Campy is there. He's been in Oakland for 30 plus years, and he's not leaving until he decides he's going to leave. I truly think that. I think, and not to mention, it also helps that his team started out pretty well in the conference. So which is great because I had no expectations of Oakland this year. None. I thought for sure that Oakland, I couldn't have made a prediction about Oakland because I was not sure about what they would do at all. And I know it's only, there are only 2 games into the conference season, but I think they're in a little better situation than we would initially let on. So I don't know. So yeah, I really don't see anybody going anywhere. Honestly, I don't see anybody. I really don't see a coach going anywhere at the end of the season in this conference this year, which is interesting because this is the first time in a long time that I can even say that. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It does help to the stability of things. Things can only get better from here, I guess. So anyway. All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up. Again, thanks for those of you who caught us live on the Sports Hacks YouTube channel. We thank you guys for for listening live and kind of bearing with us during our technical difficulties. For those of you who are listening to this recorded. Obviously, you're finding this either on sportshacks.com or you are finding it on your favorite sport podcast app, or even your Amazon or Google devices. So this
Google Box.
we wish you all a happy New Year, and thank you all for listening.